I mean, is this thing on? Welcome to Double Dose of Raw Talk podcast, where we always get comfortable being uncomfortable and no topic is ever off limits. A weekly dose of this thing we call life. And, well, if it's about my life, we always make it a double. It's a new level of maturity, confidence, and love. Now let's talk about it. Welcome back, guys, to another week and another episode on Double Dose of Raw Talk podcast. Wildest thing ever. I recorded this episode already. And here we are again because the day that I'm having, ladies and gentlemen, the devil is trying it. And sometimes you just got to recognize it. So here we are again because what I'm not going to do is give y'all, how the youth says now, a recording that's mid. It's not going to happen. But here we are again. We are back. I hope you guys have been enjoying the episodes you guys have received from me, your favorite host, Miss D. And I'm excited to come on this mic to give you all a Solita episode. If you've been here long enough, you know that my shit is all about like Solita episodes ever so often. Because who doesn't need a dose of just me, right? It gives you the double dose anyway. But I want to dive into something really quick. And this is going to be really short and sweet. Very much so like me, direct and straightforward. To the point. To the point. That's what we're doing today. This week alone, probably even since like last week, it's been a little heavy. There has been a lot of things just going on just in life, not just with me, but with people around me. And so it made me reflect a lot more into that 400-day hiatus that I took. And I went on an IG Live last night. So you're listening to this essentially the day after I did this IG Live. And we went a little deeper into the whole concept of the 400-day hiatus. And why was that so important and how beneficial it was and the why really digging deep into the why. So if you want to know a little bit more about that, a shout out to Josie and Sulianne, two amazing podcasters, entrepreneurs who joined me. Shout out to them for being just amazing women holding space for me and for others and for being just who they are and in their purpose. But they joined the live with me and I wanted to be in a comfortable space to reveal so much more about that experience and that decision that I made. And I was able to touch on a key component that I've been wanting to share a little bit more on this platform, to be able to highlight the importance on basically not giving a fuck about what anybody says when you need to take time for yourself, when you need to disconnect, when you know that that's exactly the type of therapy you need in that moment, the type of intervention that you need in that moment with whatever it is that's going on in your life. One of the things that I did highlight to have been so impactful in my decision of just stepping away from the pod. And let me be clear on something. It's not that the pod was toxic or negative or anything like that. But when you have such a dark cloud over you because there's so much going on, sometimes you do need to take a seat and just let shit flow out the way that it needs to. And you have to prioritize. And so when I had to make that difficult decision of what falls into top priority, because not everybody can go, not everybody could be there, the pod just was not there. I realized that I was actually going to do more damage to myself and to everything I have worked so hard on with this platform. And for the people that I know have reached out that can relate to so many things, I was going to do more harm than good. To keep coming to a microphone, to keep speaking on experiences, my expertise, right? And telling my stories, but by which in that moment, it was very difficult to even see anything beyond darkness. And so this is why I decided to disconnect. And I want to dive into that concept. I have stood very strong on two things. One being that disconnect, turns out, it doesn't mean disappearance. And it's okay to disconnect. And I'll tell you why. And I don't know if anybody ever thinks of it this way. I know I for sure started thinking about it this way. And it has helped me so much throughout this process. And the other thing that I want to highlight that I stand on so strong is baby steps through anything. That is how I lead my life. That is how I lead my leadership role. That is how I lead in so many things. Baby steps. Everything is baby steps. And I'll highlight that a little bit more too. The disconnecting does not equal disappearance. I cannot stress that enough. We are people as podcasters, as content creators who, the whole concept of staying consistent is showing up, right? When we think about, even if you're an entrepreneur, you got to stay consistent. You got to promote your business. You got to show up. When you think about holding a role within an organization or a company, especially if you're a leader, you got to stay consistent. You got to show up. You have to lead, right? The show goes on and you have to be at the front, correct? Okay, cool. What happens when you're not in the right space? What happens when you are not able to give all your offerings the way you normally would, could, and should? What happens when you have to reflect and you have to sit back and say, nah, I'm actually self-sabotage if I keep showing up like this, right? Now, I'm not saying walk out of a job acting like you don't need to pay bills. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying shut down your business acting like you don't need to survive. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is sometimes we do need to give ourselves that moment and that ability to disconnect, not necessarily for the disappearing act, but more so for the rebooting act. Let me explain this concept because it's very important to understand why I started viewing things like this and why it was so important for me to do it. And what's funny is I strategically did not mention this during the IG Live and haven't touched on this in depth because I wanted to dedicate a full moment of attention to this on my platform, which is now. Think about when your internet router is not working. Think about when your Wi-Fi is not connecting, right? And you call the company or you're going on the app because, you could chat with some of these folks. That's what I like to do before I have to call any 1-800 number or 611 or whatever it is. They tell you to start the troubleshooting steps, right? To reboot. Correct? Okay, cool. Now, we're talking about the phase where if it's not broken, don't fix it, except that sometimes things are just not connected correctly. Sometimes it's just not working. And so we got to take certain steps, kind of like the process of elimination, so we could try and figure out how do we get it back to its full capacity, right? Well, think about that internet router. What's the first thing they tell you to do? Tell you to check, is the light on? What color is the light, right? And then eventually leads into the step of where you got to disconnect it for a certain amount of seconds to then try and connect it again. Because usually the disconnecting is what works. Well, hello. Has it ever occurred to you that maybe that's what we need? And that may take a few seconds, like it may take a few days, few weeks, few months. In my case, 400-day hiatus. I have never looked at life like that ever in my life. Right? And then I started realizing, sitting in the space of, I need to just remove myself. I need to just sit back. And I started realizing just how similar that shit is. I started realizing just how it all makes sense, And I'm just giving you a router. Imagine all the things that require that plug to get connected, that require that electricity to charge it up, to get it functioning, right? When the whole shit shuts down, that's it. It's all dark, isn't it? That's exactly how I was feeling, in full fucking darkness, because everything was just shutting down on me. And so I started really reflecting on why disconnecting does not mean disappearance. And that's okay. It is fully okay. That is actually okay to stay consistent in the concept of disconnecting in order to reboot, refuel, in order to come back at full capacity. The other concept I wanted to shine light on, and just, very direct and straightforward, because if you know me, Miss D is always going to give you, straight, raw, all the way raw. The baby steps concept. Okay. Why did it take 400 days? I wasn't going to rush into it. I wasn't going to push myself over the edge or over the limit to figure out what was the issue. Like I was pressed with time, like I was pressed with another episode, like I was pressed with something. I couldn't do that anymore to myself, not to my mental, not to my overall health. I couldn't do it to myself anymore, in the sense that it just was no longer healthy for me to put that much pressure. And why do I say that? Because in that moment, the amount of pressure I was already feeling was something I could not control whatsoever. It was completely from the outside coming in. It was, as you all know, as I've mentioned in a few episodes ago in the comeback, it had very much so to do a lot with the current environment at that moment. Not this current, that current workplace. It just was no longer healthy. The grass isn't always greener on the other side. a real hard, rude awakening, I tell you. And I had to fully disconnect in order to bring myself back to life. I had to clear the vision. I had to clear the air in order to have clearer vision. I had to baby step my way back into figuring out where my career was going, figuring out what was it, in fact, that would make me happy, that would make me feel happy with me, with myself. But I had to sit back and figure it out. It got so deep that therapy was no longer working. I had to cancel that shit out too. I just felt like I just hit such a block. It was just such a hard wall. I was going nowhere with it. No shade to that therapist. It just was no longer working. It was not helping the situation at all whatsoever. And I realized that the disconnecting act, not the disappearing act, the disconnecting act was more beneficial to me having to sit in silence and hold space for myself and figuring out what in all these years of therapy, what in all these years of growth and wisdom, what in all these years of continuing to elevate and becoming an expert in my experiences and all the shit that I've learned and all the shit that I've lived through, what in all of that can I kind of circle back on and reboot so well and refuel so exceptionally that I could put it to purpose and to use intentionally to fix my current situation for me. And it worked. It helped. I definitely did, I want to say, kind of add to that a little dose of leaning into my own faith and figuring that part out too, because it's something that I had wanted to do for a very long time. But I couldn't even get there to that part if I wasn't even going to believe in myself first. If I wasn't going even to believe in all the years of what I've already accomplished. When you start, if you remember correctly, I did mention the whole thing of I was facing imposter syndrome. When you start doubting yourself, doubting everything that you've lived, doubting everything that you kicked ass in, doubting you as a boss, as a jefa, as a bad bitch, or some of y'all have been calling me una chingona, right? Like when you start doubting yourself to that point, then it's really like, what the fuck are you doing? You're totally self-sabotaging. The environment in that dark space, in that office, was just so cold, so empty, dark, can't stress that enough, so lonely, in the beginning, it was misrepresented for sure. What I saw off from, the entryway was one thing, and then it just turned out to be another. And it truly debilitated me. And I was just so debilitated that the full disconnect had to happen in order for me to figure out, does it now require a full replacement? Does it now require, think about it, if your cable ain't working, if the service ain't right, do I switch a whole company? Maybe I needed to switch a whole industry. Maybe I needed to just start fresh from the very beginning, entry level somewhere. I don't know. I needed to figure all of that out. And that's where the disconnecting, not being a disappearance, came in clutch. I have no regrets whatsoever in doing so. I know the world will tell you, no, don't do that because you're going to lose, people and the interest and the attention and all that. Fuck that. Sometimes, fuck that. Why would you want to keep channeling or even open the door to channel the wrong shit or the wrong people into your space because of where you are is not so positive or it's not so beneficial to you anyway? I wanted to bring this to the table to really get y'all thinking about that. And next time you step foot into your own house and you look at like your devices, just think about how many times you go and reboot this shit by disconnecting, right? Or how about, let's get a little deeper. We're all techie, right? How many times do you need to reboot your phone by shutting it off completely, canceling out all the noise? Yeah, my point exactly. Okay. I want to leave you guys with this, why the importance of baby steps is so significant. A lot of the time, we have this concept, this idea, YOLO, you only live once, right? Fuck it. You take your chances, you take your risk. And all of that is great and it's cool. Don't think it's not. There are many situations where I do take my risk and I do take my chance, right? I've done it. Remember, the grass is not always greener on the other side. Here we are, right? But the way we start in this world, we literally take those baby steps. We literally overcome those fears in learning how to stand on our own, in learning how to hold on to something and find the balance in order to crawl without, your arms falling flat and then your face hits the floor. Of course, none of us will remember that because we were too baby to fucking even remember that shit. But the point is, we all go through those phases, right? And so when we start to learn how to walk, we take baby steps, right? And what we learn is through those baby steps, you're learning, you're gaining knowledge. You're still having experiences just a little bit slower, but you're learning a lot about yourself, right? And as cheesy maybe that may sound, or just, I don't know, some of you may be like, that's so fucking stupid, but it's not. Think about it. When you start a new role, when you start a new position, 9 times out of 10, when a company expects you to just dive right in without the proper guidance or assistance or without giving you the time to baby step that shit, it's sometimes a setup for failure. Think about it. Just put yourself to think about that. That's exactly what my experience has been now that I think back to all of it. It's the places where I've been able to take those baby steps, right? Where I don't overexceed myself, overexert myself, where I don't put so much pressure on myself with having to fix 20 million things, but rather I could prioritize and I'm allowed to take those baby steps that I've been able to be far more successful. Sometimes the baby steps do lead you to that big successful plunge, to the most successful dive of your life. Just because you're not rushing into it doesn't mean it's not the most successful. Sometimes the baby steps allow you to learn so much that the success is far more long-term than what you could possibly even imagine. I stand on the baby steps. I've led my life like that for a very long time. A lot of it started happening when I was 30. Between 30 and 33. That's essentially when it really started happening for me, that I realized rushing into things gets me nowhere. Shout out to La Charo, my mama. She would always tell me when I was very impulsive on the shit, mostly when the shit I would be talking, I would not think before I talk, y'all. I would just say it. And she would say, Daisy, piensa antes que hables. Translation, Daisy, think before you talk. Think before you say that shit. Even now, there are times that my impulses are driven by my emotions. But I'm a better person. My wisdom, my experience, I've definitely improved in that. It's just nothing is perfect, right? And I mean, I am perfect, but not so perfect. And so there's still opportunity for me to keep on gaining knowledge within that wisdom and the expertise that I have from my experiences, right? There is still opportunity for me to grow. I told y'all this comeback to Double Dose of Raw Talk podcast is a whole new level of maturity, confidence, and love. And I'm going to give you guys these type of doses that I feel the world needs because I learned it. So why not share it? As simple as it may sound, to sit here and have to look at life through the position of an internet router, call it that, right? Or the situation at that, to be able to look at life through that and to be able to say, holy shit, I never thought of it that way. Put yourself to think of it just for a second. If you really sit down, give yourself that moment to disconnect and really sit down and just look the fuck around you, you will learn so much. You would learn so much, primarily about yourself, but you will learn so much. Where are you going? Where's the race? Is the issue really time, or is it you? Why are we not baby stepping things? The only places we should be running is really away from harm's way. Think about it. Yeah, I said it. Because otherwise, it's in your hands. It's in your court. Think about it. I'm going to leave you guys with that. I told you it's going to be really short and sweet. I'm super excited with the little doses I'm coming back with. This is definitely giving Solita episode. I don't know if you remember those. If you're new here, definitely go back to all those episodes and check those out and see how Solita episodes really made an impact to a certain capacity that I think would be dope as fuck to bring back and be able to shine a little bit of more light on my TMIs with that 400-day hiatus, and being able to highlight certain concepts that on this new level of maturity is important to give a little light to, and to put you all in a position to think and really reflect and see yourselves in a different light and see your life in a different light. I'm not here with answers to fix anybody's life. I am here, though, as an expert of my experiences, to share with y'all what has worked for me and what has not, and to keep it all the way raw on that. Because if you're new here, you're going to learn today. And if you've been here, you already know on this platform, we get comfortable being uncomfortable, and no topic is ever off limits. And on that note, guys, this has been another week and another episode on Double Dose of Raw Talk podcast. I hope you guys are loving the new episodes coming out. I have more guests coming to the show, and we got some more shit to talk about. Talk to you later.